Welcome back to the channel, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel Schiffer, and today we're going to be going over 5 tips to make your videos more impressive or more professional, and all of these tips won't cost you a single penny. So let's not waste any time and dive right into tip number 1, which is to stop using autofocus. Now, there are plenty of situations where autofocus is actually very helpful, and you should take this advice with a grain of salt because I am using autofocus right now. When I'm talking to the camera and nobody's behind it, autofocus is very helpful because I can't be there to make sure that everything is in focus. Now, this also applies to if you're doing gimbal work and moving around a lot, or if you're tracking fast moving subjects. If you have a camera with reliable autofocus, it can be a very beneficial and helpful tool. Now, for pretty much everything else, if you're filming subjects that aren't moving quickly and you're there behind the camera and you have the ability to push and pull focus with your hand on the lens, absolutely do it because it is a lot smoother, a lot more reliable. And the second your camera starts to hunt for focus when you have that autofocus enabled, this immediately makes your video look more amateur. Even for someone watching your video who may not have any background in film or video whatsoever, they will get that subconscious impression that something looks amateur and not quite as professional as the stuff they see on TV or in movies. That one tiny little fix of having that focus tack sharp and locked onto your subject rather than that hunting back and forth makes a huge difference in the overall impression that your video will give to an audience. Now, moving along to tip number 2, you should make sure that you understand frame rates and know which ones to use for the types of shots that you're getting. Using the wrong frame rates and doing the wrong conversions is a quick and easy way to make your videos look less professional. Every single project I edit is in a 24p project. This means that if I want my footage to be regular speed, that is going to be shot at 24 frames per second and left at 100% speed in my project. Now, on the other hand, if I want a really smooth slow motion shot, I can shoot that in 120 frames per second, bring that into the 24p timeline and slow it down to 20% of its original speed. I did a video a while back all about frame rates in slow motion, and you can check that out up here. So that is tip number 2. Make sure you understand frame rates and put in the time to really learn it, because having this knowledge will make all of your videos going forward a lot better. Now, tip number 3 has to do with the composition of your shots and framing your subject in a way that immerses the viewer into your video. So this includes things like having context in the foreground of your shots. If you have something close to the camera lens as you're pulling off a camera movement, this can make your movement much more dramatic, as well as add some context and story to the scene. So another thing you'll want to think about when shooting your videos is your horizon. Now, I do find that a lot of us tend to fixate on this axis of the horizon, and while it is important to have a level horizon on this sort of plane, it is also important to consider this axis of your horizon. So I find that a lot of the time, many people get caught in this trap of filming everything from their own point of view like this. And what you should try doing is bringing your camera down to the level of your subject, and this creates a lot more depth and introduces a lot more context into the background of your scene. When you're filming from up here, you can't see a whole lot other than what's directly in front of you, but when you bring that camera down, you now introduce a lot more stuff into the background of your shot, and it also allows you to get much more dynamic looking movements when you have things in the foreground and the background. So our 4th tip I want to talk about has to do with the flow and the style of your video. Now, when you're putting your actual sequence together in editing, you want to make sure that your shots are nice and short and concise, and they're not going on too long to bore your viewer. It is also important to make sure that your cuts and transitions complement the music and sound effects rather than having everything be sort of random and chaotic. Now, one major thing that a lot of videographers and filmmakers neglect when doing client work especially is the branding of the client and the style of the client. When you're doing any work for a brand, whether it's photography, web design, or videos, you want to make sure that it is in line with their actual branding. Now, in the case of the Ink and Water Tattoo Shop where I shot this video, their overall aesthetic is very clean cut and simple with a lot of muted colors, and I wanted to make sure that the video I was creating conveyed the same sort of feeling. So my buddy Orion York also just did a tattoo video for a shop in California called Captured Tattoo, and I want to show you his video next to mine so you can see the drastic difference. Despite both being tattoo videos, they are very different aesthetics. So if you look at the feed of Captured Tattoo, you could see that their tattoos are much more aggressive and very vibrant with tons of color, and their overall vibe is completely different from Ink and Water. Hence why my video for Ink and Water is very slow and chill with a laid back hip hop pop beat, and Orion's video for Captured Tattoo is very colorful and fast with a lot of quick cuts because this is exactly the branding of the client. And hopefully this just goes to show exactly what I'm trying to say, which is you can have two videos for the same subject matter, but when the clients are different and they have different aesthetics and different branding, you're gonna end up with very different content. Now, the fifth and final tip I wanna leave you guys with today is something that is super easy to fix, and that is to not overdo your color grades. Now, believe me, I know how tempting it is to boost the saturation and the contrast in all your shots, but I promise you, it is much more worthwhile to dial those things back and keep them nice and neutral, because at the end of the day, you don't want your color grade to be distracting or take away from the actual content in the video. So again, keep those colors nice and realistic. And if you guys want, I actually created a LUT pack, which I use for all my videos. It is the Vintage Look 2 LUT pack. It has 15 different color grades and it's all for $11.29. You can check that out in the link down in the description below. But that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Instagram at daniel.schiffer, and I will see you guys in the next video.